Good afternoon and welcome to the Wood Couture podcast. My name is Glenn Huskie. I'm the CEO and partner at Wood Couture. Today I have the absolute pleasure and privilege to welcome Stephanie Smith, Executive Director, Luxury Brands from Accor, to our podcast. Stephanie, welcome. It's awesome to see you again. It's been a long time, but it's great to see your face. You're looking really well today, and thank you very much for joining us. It's an absolute privilege and pleasure to have you with us.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure to be here, and it's great to see you as always, Glenn. It's been too long. I wish we were closer.
Yeah, time flies, eh? And look, life moves on, and people move on, and things are great here now in the UK, and life is good. So I can't complain. So, Stephanie, look, let's dive straight into some of the questions. I've known you for a long time. We work very closely together. I love working with you. I loved your passion. I loved your outlook on life. And I just thoroughly enjoyed being around you as part of our team. Couple of questions for you, and I'm going to start with you and your background, your family, and where it all began. So if you can just give us a bit of a brief background into Stephanie Smith and where it all started.
Well, sure, absolutely. That's great. Well, when I reflect back, I actually started as an interior designer, and it happened to fall upon me when I went to a university in Toronto back in the late 80s, thinking that I wanted to do fashion design or fashion merchandising. And there were some, I'll say, design boards sitting on the floor, and they went through the whole presentation of, how interior design was created. And I simply went, that's what I want to do. It wasn't that there was anything other than I was trying to search coming out of high school. What did I want to do? I knew I wanted to be in a creative field. I had applied to do graphic design and had been accepted, but that's really how it started. And then I was fortunate enough to get employed with Frank Nicholson's daughter, Pam Nicholson. Frank was probably one of the top designers back in the late 80s, early 90s for hospitality. And I was hired to do the design work for the renovation of the Fairmont Royal York. And it was the two of us in the company. So I had a lot of upfront exposure and responsibility, and kind of got bit by the hospitality bug, and my career went from there. So, my grandfather was one of the first, I'll say, owners of Canadian Tire. And so I want to say there's entrepreneurial spirit within the family. My dad, my parents are in their late 70s and they're building another home. My dad just built one 3 years ago. They're living in a pop-up trailer. I just go, okay, whatever, if you guys are happy, and he's always looking at design stuff. What do you think about this? Does this work? So I think we have it in the family. It was just nobody actually knew what to call it at the time. So
right, yeah, no. So it sounds like your father's been a massive influence in your life and really sort of shaped your thinking and that creativity. So one of the questions I was actually going to ask Steph is, now apart from your father, who else? You mentioned Frank, but who else has been, I guess, that sort of inspirational figure, that person that you've looked up to and you've taken as a bit of an idol and has influenced the way you think and the way you work and the way you run your projects? Is there anybody other than Frank or your father that you can sort of pinpoint in your career?
There's been several times throughout my career that I can say they've actually influenced where I've gone. I mean, I worked with a project manager named Ian Kenny and started designing when I was in my early 20s. And, that gentleman taught me accountability. You certainly didn't show up to a meeting not knowing what your role was or what the expectation was, or you just simply got called out. So I learned early on, take ownership, be responsible. If you make a mistake, say, I made a mistake, because then everybody can make the decisions on how to, resolve it. There's never really a mistake, I want to say, in this industry. There might be a hiccup, but you can always fix it.
Yeah, they're always fixable. I think that's something that we always learned when I was coming through my career, you know, everyone makes mistakes. You certainly learn by your mistakes, and I've made a lot in my career. But you know, mistakes are always fixable, and actually, quite often, some of the best results come out of the biggest mistakes. You know, and they're not mistakes; they're just little bumps in the road that steer you on a different path and give you other ideas and different creative directions. So, yeah, and I agree.
Yeah, it's like I have a running tally, so I know what I'm looking for, you know, because I've done it in the past. You know, that's sort of I'll say the mentoring side of things as you're moving through your career that younger people maybe haven't experienced it. You've
Right.
sort of made that mistake. I could think of a couple right off the top of my head. Paints have finishes. At the age of 21, didn't put a finish down, so the contractor painted every door in a flat finish. So that was number one. And number two was when I put Fairmont gold into Banff Springs. You know, when you're looking at a door elevation, if you're going to put a veneer on it, make sure you want a style and rail. It's the arrows for wood grain direction. And we got a flat veneer, and all the veneer ran up the door, and the designer had a meltdown. So there's two for you, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, look, they've all been made. Yeah, one of the things I enjoyed working when I was working with you was your sort of ability to sit and listen, build your own judgment, and then be assertive in your thoughts and your direction. And you know, you've got a few people in the team now around you at Accor. How are you building your experience into working with the likes of Sheldon and the other guys around you in Accor?
I think it's kind of interesting that you pick up on that. I'm the quiet one at the table. I still am the quiet one. I certainly sit back and listen, and I don't think I'm ever going to change, because I don't think there's any right perspective when you're listening. And it's the people that jump in and maybe don't allow the owner or someone else on the team to get heard. And I like to come back after hearing everybody's opinion on whatever we're discussing and just give a different perspective, or say, I think I'm hearing this, and maybe you're saying that. I mean, I was at a meeting one time and we were 10 o'clock at night because we had to get the design all approved. And ultimately, I ended up standing up and just saying, I believe that you're saying the same thing, just differently. And that actually worked. So we got approval for, you know, I think it was $10 million, and the project went ahead. And it was just simply because people weren't recognizing that they were just saying the same thing in two different fashions. So,
Yeah.
you know, when I look at Sheldon, who's on the team, I mean, I love Sheldon, and I would say that I've embraced his youthful outlook. I've been doing design for a long time, and I think he makes me better. You know, so I can share the experiences I've had over the years. Like, he'll call and say, Steph, this is going on. What do you think? I can sort of guide him on that. But the positive that he's brought to me is there's different ways of doing design. And I think in the end, we're actually a fabulous team and work really well together. You know, I don't want any of the Accor brands to appear stale. And between the two of us, maybe I bring the more practical side and he brings the side that dreams a little. But it really works in the end. I think we get a better product for everybody.
No, I completely agree, and I don't want to sort of move too far away from our conversation, but
Yeah.
looking and working with both you and Sheldon, it's a great marriage of wisdom and youth, and you know, that creative meld, and you know, you could really see that was going to be a successful partnership and a mentorship as well. And you know, it's great to hear that Sheldon's coming on and you guys are still continuing to work so well together. It's brilliant, and Accor will only benefit from that. You know, two very talented people. So moving on, and we spoke a little about some of the failures, but thinking about some of the, you know, really great achievements. What really gets your creative juices flowing and really has allowed you to deliver some of the, I mean, some really iconic projects. I mean, Royal York, you've been around twice. Most recently with Rockwell, and we'll talk about that in a second. But you know, to refurbish a building like the Royal York twice in a career is phenomenal. So tell me what really gets you going and really gets that under your skin to really be passionate about the design and, you know, bringing new ideas and creativity into the design brief when you're working with people like Rockwell and the owners of the Royal York.
To be honest, I think the one thing that really gets me going is somebody telling me I can't do something. You'll never do it. I'm like, you know what? Watch me.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, Rockwell, it was an interesting time. I mean, I had gone on the ownership side, I'll say, for the renovation of Chateau Frontenac, which was really the start of the, I'll say, the best part of my career, because we had control over sort of the project management, the design vision. You know, we were married with the brand. Of course, we want the best for everybody because it's sort of like a tripod. There's, you know, operations, there's the brand, and then there's the owner. So everybody has to be in sync or the chair falls over. Right. So I think my biggest and most exciting project, aside from the Royal York, because that's most recent, was the transformation for the Fairmont Chateau Frontenac and really bringing to life what Fairmont is today. And that was sort of moving the brand forward, you know, with Eileen Slora's blessing, pushing boundaries. I mean, I remember standing in the lobby and the GM was having a complete and utter meltdown over the fact that we were going to paint the, you know, non-heritage ceiling blue. And he was just holding his head going, no, and I'm like, paint it. And it's probably one of the best decisions that Rockwell ever made, or recommendations, I guess. And what a statement. And it allowed everybody from an ownership and a brand perspective to have a place where you could go and say, this is what we can do. So you have great designers, you have, you know, owners who believe in the team that's running it, and everything fell into place there. And then from that perspective, it was the same owner. We moved over to the Fairmont Queen Elizabeth in Montreal. That hotel eventually got shut. So we did a top to bottom repositioning of that property. Again, big transformation, much more aligned with what the 70s architecture with a company called Sidley. So again, forward-thinking designers. And then ultimately, I mean, the Royal York will always have a special place in my life. I started there. I hope to finish there. I don't know if I'll ever see a third renovation, but who knows?
You never know, yeah.
And that one, I think, really pushed the brand center stage, and it set the bar for what Fairmont Gold is globally.
Yeah.
It was a nice marriage between a heritage building and an interior that has modernity. It appeals to young and older people. You know, Fairmont just doesn't want to have, well, people that are 50, 60, 70, 80 going. They want to appeal to the younger generation. And, you know, before COVID, you couldn't even get a place to sit in the Clockwork bar. So.
Yeah, no, I think looking back on it, and, you know, I can't take any credit at all, but looking back on what you guys did with that hotel, working with Edwin Frizzle, working with Greg and Rockwell and the team, and, you know, a lot of love, passion, and hard work went into repositioning that. And I think ultimately you really did nail timeless, elegant luxury for such a beautiful old building. And no, it was a tremendous success. And I think, you know, you should be very proud of that achievement, Steph. You did a fantastic job. And I think let's hope you can get to go around a third time. It'd be awesome. You know, if you could do that before the end of your career. You've still got plenty of time. You're still plenty of energy in you, I'm sure. You know, you never know. It could come around again. That'd be awesome.
It would. I would really. You wait. We haven't unveiled the library bar, the small boutique.
Okay.
So that's coming. It's done and ready to go. So
was there, we're going to digress here slightly, but was there any more thought around the rooftop and putting anything up on those roof terraces, or it's just not gonna work?
no, I haven't heard anything right now. We've got the honeybees and the private garden up there.
Right.
So no, I haven't heard anything about that recently, but I've been up there once when Carl retired and it's spectacular. I mean, the views, and if you could make it a venue.
Yeah, that's what made me think of it. I remember Carl's retirement. I remember flying in and meeting with you and Eileen and Carl and his family, and standing on that rooftop overlooking downtown Toronto was pretty impressive. It's a great space. So, maybe that's an opportunity for the future. We can let's park that one, and we'll come back to it in a few years' time. So, Steph, you've worked for yourself. You had your own company, Element. So you've worked on both sides of the track. You've worked for the big corporates. You've worked for yourself. What do you think the main differences are, the biggest challenges are, and the sort of pros and cons for working on both sides of the track?
Well, corporately, I mean, I love my job. I think it's most rewarding when you see the project finished. When I was designing for myself, I was fortunate enough that some of the owners of Fairmont at the time embraced me and understood and trust me. So back in, it was 2010, 11, and 12 that I worked for myself again. That was the most recent before I took the leap to go on the ownership side. Not every owner has endless amounts of money. And I think having the history and the training that I do, you have the ability to understand how to spend the money right. It's not like you can just go out and design this beautiful space. You also have to be able to afford it for the owner and the brand, and make sure that it meets everybody's expectations at the end. So, I'll just talk about fabrics. Spending $35 on an upholstery fabric, but then picking maybe $100 fabric for the accent cushions. You have to know where to put the jewelry and, I'll say, the sparkle and the things that matter that everybody picks up on in the design. I mean, I'll take you back in history a bit, but things have completely changed design-wise from when I started. And I'll just say this, I don't think a lot of people realize I sold carpet for a number of years. So I have a lot of training when it comes to that. Plus my husband, he was in the industry as well. That's actually where we met. So if you think about how carpets were designed, and I have a passion for it, we actually had to draw the pattern, paint it, take yarn, the color you wanted them to match, tape it on, and then they would come back with a hand rendered, if it was an area rug, it was usually 11 by 17, and they painted the whole thing and it showed you exactly what you were going to get. I mean, now everything's computer generated. I mean, when I look at what you're doing now, I mean, we used to have to draw our own furniture if we wanted to custom design anything. And I think that art is disappearing. So reflecting on, or, looking to companies like yourself, where people pull a picture off the internet and go, I want this chair, but they don't understand all the scale, proportion, ergonomics. This is where I always felt, even when I was working for other designers, you guys are a resource. I know designers, when I sold carpet, no, you can't have the project name. No, I can't give you any information. I actually took a different approach and embraced everyone, because I kind of chuckle. I say, I know enough to be dangerous. I don't do what you do every day. So I like the ability to pick up the phone and say, I have a project. I have, $500 for a chair. that's kind of the line item budget that I'm trying to target. If I send you a couple pictures, can you give me an idea whether I could afford it? How could we bring it in on budget? Before I even went to an owner and presented it, I already knew and had, I'll say, high level quotes. So I knew what I could deliver when I was designing.
It's interesting that you say about my jump into FF&E manufacturing, and like you say, I know enough to be dangerous, but I'm fortunate enough to work with people like Paolo, who's been manufacturing furniture for 30 years. So I'm on a real learning curve at the moment myself. I've been around the industry long enough, as you say, to be dangerous, but the intricacies of FF&E manufacturing, especially when it comes to the bespoke, the real bespoke manufacturing, it's a whole new ball game for me as well. So I'm learning and learning fast, and these guys are good, and we've got a great product that's coming through. So it's interesting. You spoke earlier about the way, I guess, technology's changed from you hand drawing a carpet and matching yarns to colorways, and then them coming back. What's your biggest pet peeve in the industry now? And people keep going on about technology, and technology is certainly advancing us every single day. I mean, look at us now. We're sitting on a podcast. You're in Toronto. I'm in London. It's like having you in the same room. But what still frustrates you, and where do you think sort of technology in our industry can move us? How can it help us move forward? And it's moving forward at a pace, but sometimes technology can be, I think, equally as frustrating as beneficial. So what's your thoughts around that?
Well, this is where Sheldon is a great partner to me, because he's up on all the latest technology. So, because I'll be the first to admit I'm not. I think, when Revit came in play, up until, well, everybody I think was working on CAD. I mean, I graduated school when CAD first started, and I split the scene because I sure didn't want to take it. So I am not someone who does AutoCAD. I can get around on a screen, but I think you'd wait a long time for me to create a drawing. But the one thing that we always realized is when MEP got placed into the architecture and the interior design, Revit has the ability of showing everybody how everything falls into place, and all of a sudden you've got this big duct that's in the middle of your room that nobody knew about. And so I think from that perspective, it's really helpful for everyone. Mm-hmm. I think there's a bit of a lost art with how interior design is run these days. A lot of people use Pinterest. And it's funny, sitting in my role, there'll be a light, or there'll be a chair or something that every designer gravitates to, because you start to see it repeat in presentations, and the other designers don't see it at all.
Yeah.
I think technology has increased timelines a lot. I mean, there's no breathing room for designers anymore. I think if I look back, we used to send things by mail or by courier. So you had like 2 or 3 days to actually gather your thoughts before something came back. Then the fax came in, and then email, and now everything's instantaneous. Like, people want an answer within a couple hours. That's the way it feels anyway. So I think technology is good and bad. I know technology is always going to move forward, but I think, if I go back to the carpet or the manufacturing side of things, that's where we could do better. I think we now do model rooms in 6 months.
Right. Yeah.
I don't really know. I'm sorry, I don't have that answer for you, Glenn.
No, it's an interesting question, and some of the stuff that we're doing at Wood Couture, we're working now on 3D models and 3D renders, and we're really trying to bring the timeline that you mentioned forward, so we can design out a lot of frustrations or a lot of ergonomics that you might not understand until a real prototype is made.
Mhm.
But being able to do that in real time, being able to do that in a 3D model and sit with people like yourselves and the interior designers and an owner and say, is this what you want? This is what it's going to look like. You know, we can really test it in real time and save some time in the production process. But there are other technologies out there that I think, you know, do slow the process down. And I think you're absolutely spot on in people don't have the time for creativity anymore. And I think that it's interesting that you've mentioned that, because I think, if I can say on your behalf, that's probably one of your biggest pet peeves. And I know it was one of mine and still is one of mine. You don't get that opportunity to actually just sit back and think about a solution and think about options and different solutions and give yourself that breathing space. Because technology, you wake up in the morning, you've got 300 emails and you've got to reply to 150 of them by lunchtime.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that you offering three-dimensional views of seating is fabulous, because I mean, I've done enough shop drawings in my career that I know what I'm looking for. Scale, proportion, you know,
Right.
give a dimension at the bottom of the leg. Like if you want the leg to taper, get your tape measure out and say, okay, I want it to start at 2.5 and I want it to end at 3/4. And
Yeah,
you guys will, you know, that all that information should go on a line drawing behind a spec. But I find, you know, when I see, let's say, a mock-up room, young designers, you know, they check the dimensions because they pulled it from a website, but they don't understand, you know, how everything comes together and curves and lines and how things can turn out boxy and flat. So I think it's perfect if you have the ability to sit with somebody and show them exactly what they've designed and then finesse it to
right.
achieve what they're really wanting. Boy, would that make a big difference.
Something I wanted to ask you, Stephanie, you were nominated as a woman in leadership in NCA. Can you tell me a bit about that? Can you tell me how that come about, what the award was about, and, you know, what it meant to you?
Well, it meant the world to me, because I've spent most of my career in hotels, and up until recently, there weren't a lot of women who were given the responsibility that I was. So to be recognized not only for, I'll say, the history of my career, but also through Accor, because Accor, you know, supports women leaders, which is fabulous.
Yeah.
I was invited to go speak in California on a panel, and they had a bunch of different questions ranging, you know, from how we looked at Fairmont to delivering hotels. And I think it was really rewarding for me to get the recognition after all these years, because I really do try and get up every morning to make the best of the day, knowing that everybody wants to do the right thing in the end.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know that every project doesn't go along smoothly, but in the end, you know, y'all end up having a big hug, and it feels good. It feels good when you deliver. Maybe not in the heat of it, but I think I'm the best kept secret in Toronto, to be honest. Nobody realizes that there's an Accor office and how much influence someone in my role has on a project. So to just have I'll say the publication as someone who influences, it meant a lot to me.
No, you should be extremely proud. And I know I was extremely proud when I heard the good news, and I saw that online and, you know, through LinkedIn and through various social media platforms. You should be extremely proud. And I've always said to you, you're a pocket rocket, Steph. And I think you don't give yourself enough credit for how good you are. And, you know, you've had a fantastic career, and it was very, very well deserved. Well done.
Thank you.
So just moving back to the industry, and I guess themes around the industry right now, guest experience. You know, it's a massive buzzword at the moment, isn't it? And everyone's going on about guest experience and Instagram moments and social media and getting that selfie, getting that picture. It's vitally important. We know it sells. It sells a lifestyle. It sells a hotel. It sells rooms, and ultimately that's the business of hospitality that we're in. We're selling rooms. We're selling guest experiences. But what does guest experience mean for you, and how do you bring guest experience to life through your influence on a project and your influence on design?
Well, given that I have responsibility for a number of different brands, it's always embracing what the brand leader is looking to deliver, and try and, I'll use your wording, keep the red thread globally for the guest. So if you're a diehard Swiss hotel person, you're going to get a similar experience, whether you're in Dubai or you're in, I'll say, Chicago. I really do take that seriously. It's not like I want to make the brand whatever I think it should be, because people have expectations and they have high expectations. I mean, the whole industry has changed completely from, well, I'll say on many different directions. I mean, when I started, we had two people and you went and presented and you said Scheme A or Scheme B boys, and they'd pick one and you were off to the races and that was it. But now we have, asset managers, interior designers, there's so many people that are involved in a hotel renovation, let alone branding. You have to kind of take a step back, remember who the clientele is, and really what is it that they want to see in whichever location that you happen to be building in. When all of the television shows came on about design, that really did set the benchmark really quite high for a lot of the luxury brands. We used to try and deliver hotels that had experiences that you would not have in your home. Well, everybody has really high experiences, especially that go to luxury and ultra luxury branded properties. So we're always trying to deliver something unexpected. I'll say that a lot of the guest experience is brought to life past design. I mean, design, I'll be the first to say, is subjective. What I like, someone else may not. I try and really keep my personal taste out of it. It's what's best for the brand we're working on and the project. And the operations team, they're the ones that bring it to life after we deliver, and they interface with the guest. So that's a whole different layer that we're looking to deliver the best service and engagement and welcoming environment for our guests.
Cool. Yeah, no, it really is so important to marry that guest expectation with value, with brand, with local experience. And I think, again, just going back over your career and looking at some of the properties that you've worked on over the years, you've always managed to keep them uniquely local, but uniquely authentic and timeless as well. And you can see that through the different sort of phases of life of these hotels. So yeah, very interesting. And I think ultimately guest experience really hasn't changed. I just think it's a bit more of a buzzword now, right? And I think
So.
brands are so strong, and that they give us so much direction. But ultimately, it's about marrying what the guest really wants with the location and giving them the best experience they possibly can. Okay. We've touched a little bit earlier on carpets and finishes and technology and where the world is moving to now. Can you give us, Wood Couture, any advice, any guidance, any sort of future thoughts on where the industry is going? What interior designers are looking for from suppliers like Wood Couture?
I mean, the biggest advice I could give you, Glenn, is offer, I don't know, lunch and learns. Get yourself in front of these younger designers and show them how you can help them. I think that would take an immense amount of pressure off myself. That's the selfish side of that comment. Because again, you know, I can tell you the people that influenced my career, and the gentleman's name is Kerry, and he was in Toronto, and he drew his shop drawings by hand. And I learned from him, and he would take the time and explain it to me. You know, people I don't even think realize there's different foam densities. You know, they see a pretty picture, they don't know about construction on seats, they don't understand, you know, doweling and the springs and all this stuff that, you know, gets put together to create this fabulous chair. I mean, however you guys manufacture it, but I'm just saying springs, but webbing and all that stuff. I'm telling you, people need to learn enough to be dangerous, and that's the one component that's missing. And I mean, I saw a mock-up chair recently, and it was like a throne. It was massive because the designers, again, didn't understand the scale and proportion of things. And it was helpful to take a second chair and just push it up beside it to say, I think this is more what you were looking for, but this is what you've signed off on.
Right.
I'm sure that you guys can make inroads with a lot of the, you know, creative, talented designers that are out there.
Yeah.
But it's the people that do the work every day, that write the specs, that, you know, just need a bit of guidance. And I think you do a fabulous job, because you'll bring many different aspects into this role that you have. And I think you do a really great job at it.
Cheers, Steph. So as we move on, where do you see yourself now? You know, we spoke about your career, and you know, you've been in the industry for a long time, but where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years? You've got a growing family, you know, you've got the house in the countryside, you've got a lot of dogs. Where do you see yourself professionally and personally?
So personally, my daughter got her driver's license 2 days ago, so
Congratulations.
Thank you. That took a lot of pressure off. So I think my kids are getting older. So as I'll say, look to the next 10 years, selfishly, I want it to be about me. So I'm always challenged daily on projects. So I think I'm looking for not something new, but something that I can sink my teeth in. I'd have to say mentoring is a big thing that I think about a lot of the time. So how I could do that, you know, with other teammates, I'll say, would be something I'd really like to embrace. I kind of wish that I had the ability to influence some of the other teams globally more so than what I do. Everybody, as you know, Glenn, comes back to me for Fairmont, and I think that would be something I'd really like to embrace. I don't know if I'll get the opportunity per se, but it's something I desire to do. You know, and just keep pushing the boundaries. I mean, that's really what gets me up every day. Sheldon and I did I'll say a podcast a couple months ago, and the number of people that came back to the two of us, even individually, and said we had no idea how much Fairmont had evolved. I'm going to make my next stay at a Fairmont because of the stuff that we presented and spoke about. That's the stuff that drives me. You know, I want the word out there. that it's not the classic traditional brand that it once was. So I'm just gonna keep pushing forward.
Yeah, look, it's great to see you're still so passionate about the Fairmont brand. You know, I share that. You know, it was my go-to brand as well, Steph. I loved it. I loved every moment working on Fairmont hotels. The brand's special. It's got a special heritage, special people around the brand previously and now. And long may it continue, because you know it really is one of the most iconic brands out there. And I think you're right. And people don't truly understand what Fairmont is, and I think it does now. And with your input, it's transgressing generations, and you're really bringing it to life, as it always has been. But I think it's starting to really come to life now. It's really resonating really well. So again, congratulations. So we spoke a bit about Sheldon.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that you'd like to mentor a little more. Looking back to your 16, 17, 18-year-old student self, when you had that light bulb moment that you wanted to become an interior designer, knowing everything that you know now, what would you tell yourself? What advice would you give yourself then?
That's a trick question. I do have a lot of people.
It's not meant to be a trick question.
No, I'm just like, oh, I've never really thought about it. I mean, I do have a lot of young kids that come and they ask me about my career. I kind of, I don't even, okay, I'm going to say it. You know, it's kind of like the starving artist's, you know, career. And you start off and it's really tough. And I think my advice would be, well, I'd like to say I like to think I did it right, because I worked for small firms where I gained a lot of experience early on in my career. And because if I talk to students or even recent graduates, they get into larger firms, but then all they do is CAD all day long, or they write specifications all day long. I was fortunate enough through my career to work for, you know, and I'm going back, Carrie Busby. You know, she looked after all of the mountain region. I mean, I designed the properties before I ever came to the corporate side to look after the brand and the hotel from a different perspective. I had pretty much worked in almost every hotel across Canada through small firms. And this is back in the 90s. Whether it was Heather Jones and Associates, or it was Carrie Busby, or it was Pam Nicholson. That really afforded me the ability to see all sides of, I'll say, the design. So, you know, when I came to design for myself, which I think a lot of people wanted to do, I knew how to write a spec, because Pam was very specific about how you write a spec. Heather Jones, this is how you design carpet. And Stephanie, if you repeat it like that, you're going to get banding. Well, what's banding? Banding, you know, visual banding. I mean, these people really took the time and again gave me the responsibility to do what I thought was right. And we kind of had one rule: if it doesn't work out, we love it and we'll take it up offside later on. It was always being supportive of each other as well. So I think being open-minded. So now that I've talked this through for myself, you know, being open-minded, you know, embracing the challenge of taking on something that maybe you're not feeling you're confident enough. I mean, I remember the first time Heather gave me a ballroom, and it was down in Niagara on the Lake. For the client was CYLI, and she's like, go design the ballroom. And you stand there and you're like, the whole thing? Really? And show me when you're done. Okay, you know, do all the drawings, do the carpets, do it all. And it pushed me outside of my comfort zone, which to this day I still use my stomach flutters, whatever you want to call it, that if somebody presents me something and I am a little nervous, you know what? It's probably the right thing to do to move the brand and the design work forward. Because if I'm like, yeah, okay, it's great. It's not pushing boundaries. So I think take a chance.
Yeah.
That's probably what I'd tell myself.
Yeah, I like that. No, I like that a lot. I think jumping into the deep end and learning to swim is definitely the fastest way to learn. And again, we spoke about this earlier on, but you learn by your mistakes, and you know, you learn so much when people give you trust, give you the opportunity to grow and deliver. And I think, yeah, it's great. I think I completely agree with everything you said. So that leads me on to my next question. And I think you might even be able to tie this back now. And this will be one of the last questions, Steph. If there was a billboard, Steph, anywhere in the world, where would it be and what would it say?
I'm going to say that it's Paris.
Nice.
And I'm going to use, I think it's Nike, and it's Just Do It.
Love it. Excellent.
That would be it. Now, how I translate that to French, I'd have to ask one of my kids. But I think Paris, having the ability to see you there so many times, really resonated with me personally. And I think I grew career-wise. Again, it was opening my eyes, and, you know, I'll even say you threw me in the deep end and I survived, and I appreciate that. But I think, you know, the one thing that Accor has brought to my life is the ability to push the boundaries, like I said earlier, and just do what I think is best. And I like that. And I'm thankful for that, the trust.
Cool. Love it. Yeah, just do it. Yeah, another good strap line. So that's two good strap lines you've given us today, but I'm not sure Nike will be too happy if we steal that one. But
Yeah.
we'll give it a shot. So look, I think we're getting close to wrapping up. We've been talking for nearly an hour. I've absolutely loved it. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Steph, and thank you for your time. I'm getting hungry now. And I'm thinking of going for a bit of dinner. So just one last question. Where would you go for dinner tonight, and what do you want to eat?
Well, it was my birthday yesterday, so.
Oh, well, I didn't know that.
Yesterday. So
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I had the joy of doing that yesterday. I wanted to be near some water. I wanted something quite casual. So I went to a small little place downtown Guelph called the Boathouse, sat by the river, got to have high tea, which is one of my favorite things in life. And it was beautiful. It was sunny, 24 degrees. And my family, the kids and Adrian and I sat there and had a fabulous time. So
sounds perfect. Well, happy birthday, Steph. If I'd have known, I'll put that in my diary now, because I didn't have it. So I'll put that in my diary, and I'll be sure to send you a birthday message next year.
I'm not counting anymore, Glenn.
No, I'm getting to that stage too as well, Steph. It's actually my birthday tomorrow. So I didn't realize we were so close together. So next year we'll do a birthday podcast, and we'll have a glass of wine or a couple of beers together.
And I'm not going to forget, because my best friend's birthday is tomorrow. So you know what? Ian Kenny, who I spoke about earlier, you and Susan are all tomorrow. So there you go. 3 fabulous people all on the same day.
Perfect. Well, that's very kind. All right, Steph. Well, lovely to see you. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your holidays. Thank you for taking the time out of your holidays to talk to us today. And I'm definitely going to come back to you with a few of those strap lines, and I'm definitely going to come back to you with some advice on how we can improve ourselves as manufacturers. So, Steph, thank you. Take care and all the best.
All right. Thank you.